Good morning and welcome to FlossTube number 35. We're in a little bit of a different setting today. We are really getting into this empty nest thing, and we are doing a significant amount of rearranging of our house. And so my husband has set me up in a different spot in the same room because things are kind of in flux right now. So things might change quite a bit over the next few videos, hopefully for the better. But like right now, I'm realizing that my husband thinks he's funny. And I can't deal with that. So we're going to do that. No, that's not going to be any better. He's going to go on the floor. This is a very fancy bear mask my husband uses for his some of his filmmaking, and he put Tina. These are called sun stashes. They might be available at a local toy store. And this is it Tina? Is that the right name, or is it Louise? It's been a while since I watched Bob's Burgers, but you know, the Bob's Burgers sarcastic girl. Okay, the expensive bear mask is nevertheless going on the floor. Okay. There we go. I can live with that. So, my name's Christine, and I am CMD586 on Instagram, so follow me there if you're on Instagram. The lighting, etc., and even the sound, it sounds a little echoey in here. Things might be a little funny, but we're just going with it because we're moving furniture, and we have 3 and a piece bedrooms in this house, and we only have the 2 of us, and so we're doing some like rethinking of the living arrangements, and so I've just kind of given my husband free rein, told him I don't, for the most part, don't really care what we do. So he's deep into moving everything around, and so who knows where I'll be next time you see me. But this is not the permanent plan. It was nice of him to put a few cross-stitch things up behind me, but anyway, so quick life update. Last we spoke 3 weeks ago, I was about to have my little staycation as my husband was delivering Max and helping him move into his dorms at Boise State, and all of that went very well. I had a very nice time all by myself. There was not a whole lot of problems, you know, I realized that I like the age that we live in with sending a kid to college. I think that my parents and my husband's parents had it a whole lot harder than we do. We have really been hearing from our son basically every day, and we've been trying to give him his independence and leave him alone, but we've been hearing from him in bits and pieces. We've contacted him when we felt a need to, but when we've been able to restrain ourselves after a fashion, he has contacted us. So things seem to be going very well for him. He's in his 3rd week of classes now, I think, and he's making friends, and he's joining clubs, and he says his classes are really easy and his schedule is really easy. He's taking 15 credits, but they're all 100 level, and you know, let's face it, college kind of tends to start off easy and get harder. So I told him to enjoy it while it lasts and get some good grades under his belt, and you know, and that it's going to get more challenging. But he seems to be doing very well, and so, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic and pleased at the moment. So that's all going well, and my husband and I, as I said, we're kind of embracing being empty nesters and having the place to ourselves, and seeing what we can do that's different, that suits just us. Okay, so that's basically it for the life update. Everything's fine. All right. I worked on, I don't have any haul. I have a few things on order. Frankly, I've bought a lot of yarn I just had my birthday on the 4th, and my husband took me out to dinner, and then I had some birthday money to spend, and I actually spent it Most all of it I spent on yarn, because apparently this crocheting thing is working out for me. But nevertheless, in spite of that, I have done a fair amount of cross stitching these last few weeks. I've worked on 4 projects. I have finished 1 project. One project has gotten to the point where I think I will probably finish it before I put it down again, and which puts me at 49 whips. I have managed to restrain myself from starting something new. So maybe I'll even get down to 48 whips before I start something new. We'll see if we can keep this going. Of course, that is totally not counting anything crochet related. Crochet doesn't count. So, so let's just get started. I'm gonna just show you all the cross stitch stuff, and then I will talk about books and crochet at the end, so that if you are totally not interested in either of those things, then you can depart. So first off, when last we spoke, I was working on it's right here, Undersea Kingdom, and I worked on it significantly after our video. During my little staycation, I primarily worked on Undersea Kingdom. I kind of split my time between Undersea Kingdom and crocheting a blanket, and I finished that blanket that I was working on, and it's actually on our bed right now. I'll show you a picture of it later, but it's on our bed right now. We love it. The cat loves it. Undersea Kingdom. Here's a picture of what it'll look like finished. It's Boise Threads kit, using everything that came with the kit. Here is a picture of where it was when last you saw it, because last time I didn't show you a previous progress picture because I didn't think you could tell the difference. But this time I've made more headway. This is getting slow going because, well, not really slow going. It's actually an easy project for me to work on, even though it's full coverage. But it's just, you don't really see the progress that well, just because now that I've mostly done with the octopus and I'm just doing a lot of filling in. But this time I think you can see the difference. So here's a picture of where it was when last you saw it, and here is a picture of where it is now. So yeah, this is really beautiful, and I kind of want to keep working on this steadily. I would like to finish it sooner rather than later. Obviously, there's still quite a bit to do, but I would say I'm probably more than halfway done. It's hard to say because I jump around, but I would venture to guess that I'm well beyond halfway done with the actual stitching. So, and I haven't done any of the back stitching, but there's not a whole heck of a lot of back stitching in this project. So, anyway, that's where I'm at on that one. And I'm gonna kind of keep this one kind of active, I think, until it's done. Just keep it handy. It is easy to work on, and I love it, and I'm very sentimental about it because, as I've said several times, I think I really just think about my son when I'm stitching this, and so it was very appropriate for me to work on that during my staycation. And yeah, so then, the next thing I did was I had a finish. I really wanted to have a finish. I wanted to get down to 49 whips instead of 50, and I have a lot of things that are reasonably close to being finished, and so I got out something I knew I could finish, and also because I've been crocheting at the same time, I kind of have wanted things that weren't too hard to work on, that I could like work on hour on this and then crochet, etc. So so this is I didn't write down what it's from. It's from an issue. I have a digital copy of this pattern. There's an issue of World of Cross Stitching, I believe. I want to say it's issue 246 from a couple of years ago. Shannon Christine designs. There's like four, I believe. I think they're called Spooky Silhouettes. And this is the only one I finished. I think the lighting is a little bit dim in here today. I apologize for that. Hopefully you can see okay. We're just gonna have to live with what it is in here today. We're gonna be in flux for maybe the next several FlossTube episodes. But I think you guys will bear with me. So there's that one. Yeah, I love these. It's all DMC 310 with a fair amount of back stitching and a good number of French knots too in there, which you could theoretically replace with beads. I actually have black beads, and I thought about replacing these with black beads, but I really enjoy doing French knots, so I went ahead and did the French knots. So that one is finished. So now I'm down to 49 whips because I finished that tiny little thing. Then something that's really been calling to me, 101 alphabets. I've been seeing people starting theirs and working on theirs, and I hadn't worked on mine in a long time. So I went ahead and got mine out. I didn't get that much done on it. This project is really slow going. There's a lot of really small motifs, a lot of color changing. The alphabets aren't so bad. You can go through them pretty quickly, but there's a whole lot of, even though there's 101 alphabets, there's a whole lot of non-alphabets. There's a whole lot of many little motifs that are like, you do 4 stitches of this color and then you switch to something else. And I love it, but it is takes a little more concentration. It's a little more time consuming than, there's a lot of over one, I mean, not a lot, but most of the big letters, like you see this big letter here, this big G, you can't see in this picture. But there's like the big G, and then there's little tiny over one G inside the big G. So it just takes a lot of attention to detail, a lot of color changes. So I didn't do that much on it. I won't show you a picture of where I was before. I can just kind of tell you. So this is where it is now. I'm doing mine. I believe I'm doing mine on the called for fabric. I am using all of the called for threads. It's on 36 count. It calls for 2 over 2 for the cross stitches on 36 count. And I want to say this is cream fabric. I'm pretty certain it's the called for. It's 36 count. Oh, ivory. It's 36 count ivory. I guess it's not cream. Maybe unless I defied that. It's definitely 36 count and Zweigert. Linen. Here's where I am now. And what I did basically was this alphabet and this alphabet. This alphabet and this alphabet and a bunch of like motifs around it, and one of the little tiny over one letters and a little tiny E inside that big E. So I didn't do that much, but it wasn't really a good project to be working on when my attention was divided. When I would work on it for like a while and then want to crochet instead. So it's one of those projects that I think I need to really focus on when I'm working on and dedicate myself to it. So it'll probably go away for a while until the crochet bug stops biting me quite so hard. Okay. So I got that. Put it away. I'm going to put this away just because it's cream or ivory fabric and I just don't want anything to happen to it. So it's going to get put away before I do anything else. And then the last thing I worked on was my Boise Threads Fairy Tales Wizard of Oz, and I think this will probably be my next finish because there's not, like, I'm kind of in the home stretch on this. There's a good chunk of stitching left to do, but not an overwhelming amount, and it's fairly easy. I made sure that this time that I did the more challenging bits, at least what I think are the more challenging bits. So here's a picture of where it was when last you saw it. And here it is now. And what I made sure to do was to finish finally, because I really, like this border wasn't really, it was kind of fiddly. I finally finished the border, and I did the last butterfly and did the back stitching on the butterflies. So now I have the castle and the house, which is not an insignificant amount of black stitches. But it's pretty easy. It's just a matter of mostly just filling in. And there's some back stitching on the castle. And then there is, after that, there's some silver and her crown and silver in her dress and her wand. And then the shoes I am also going to do in silver. I'm going to do the silver in her and the like rainbowy stuff, the silvery rainbowy stuff behind the Emerald City before I do the red shoes, in case I don't have enough silver for that. If I don't have enough silver for that, I still won't use the red, because I just don't want the red shoes. I want to honor the books instead of the movie. Not that there's anything wrong with the movie, but I just always side on the, if there's a choice between book and movie, I always go with book. So the shoes in the book are silver, so I will do them in silver somehow, even if it means going out and getting more silver thread. So I kind of think it won't, though. The kit is pretty generous, at least on the black thread. So we'll see. I bet they've sent me enough. It also looks like that silver kind of looks like hellish, and so if I start using it and I just absolutely hate it, I will go out and get some other silver. I did look at the Etoile stuff. My Joanne has started carrying that. That stuff looks intriguing. I don't think it's quite, I think the effect is a little too subtle. I don't think it's, I think it might be a little too, not shiny enough. For what I would be going for on this. So, but I could always buy some Petite Treasure Braid or some Krynic and use that instead. So that remains to be seen. All right, so now this is a rather short video if you're only here for the cross stitch. I already said it. Basically, I think for my plans for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be trying to focus on the Boise threads. I'd really like to get that finished, and I feel like I can. A couple of other things I'd like to do. I'm trying to think about what's calling to me, because I'm trying really hard not to start any new cross stitch. So, because I'd really like to have a lot fewer whips. And I'd like to feel like I can start new things, so I'd like to get some more things done before I give in and start some new things. So one of the things I would like to work on is I'd really like to work on, I showed you this last time. It's called Spooky Halloween. It's Doreen Jones. It's part of the Carla and Leo's Halloween Stitch Along, and I'd like to be able to post on that Facebook group. So I want to get back into that. That's another project that's pretty easy to work on. Something that's not so easy to work on, but nevertheless is really calling to me, is Coastal Views by Dimensions. It's a Dimensions Gold kit. I love this. I haven't worked on it in several months, but last time I did work on it, I have made quite a lot of progress, so I've got quite a lot done. I would like to get this back out, because it is definitely calling to me. So, I don't have as much done as I thought I did. But, last time I worked on it, I concentrated very heavily on the tunnel, and so there's a lot to be done, and I would love to get this out again. It is calling to me, so even though it takes more concentration than some things, I would like to get that out again. Okay. All right, so this is going away. I'll put it away later. I've got the fabric put away. I'll put the picture away later. Okay, so that is it for the cross stitch talk, if that is all you came here for. Hopefully you'll stick around, but if you don't, you don't. So I finished my crochet blanket, my big crochet blanket. I didn't bring it in here because the cat's laying on it. It's on our bed. We're using it every night on our bed, and that's one of the things I'm really liking about this is actually using the stuff I make. So here is a picture of it, though. There you go. So that was a lot of work. But once I figured it out, and the first several inches, the bottom several inches of it are kind of a mess because I really didn't understand what I was doing. And so things are very like wonky along the side and stuff like that. But then I got it figured out and it became a very easy, very sort of meditative. I can just sit and relax and do this and not really think about it and just keep going and going until I got it done. It only took me a few weeks, but it was, quite a bit of work, but it went fast and it was easy and mostly brainless once I got going on it. And I'm very satisfied and just really satisfying to be having that on our bed and the cat's enjoying it and we're using it and that's great. Okay, and then I wanted to make something more under the blanket pretty soon. I really want to make one for my son. I haven't decided the pattern though. I don't want to use the same pattern because I will get bored. At least not right away. But I discovered a pattern called the waffle stitch, and my son really likes dark purple, and so sorry, you're gonna have to be stared at by the evil beagle. We got this beagle for my son when at Christmas right before we got our real beagle, we decided to get a beagle, and I ordered this Melissa and Doug beagle from the store I worked at, from the bookstore I worked at, and I ordered it because I was like, okay, we had decided to get a beagle and we'd made this decision and I wanted to know changing of our mind to the decision. So I was trying to do little things to keep particularly my son's enthusiasm, he was 8 at the time, enthusiasm for a beagle up. And so we bought little beagle-y things, And so I ordered this Melissa and Doug beagle, and the thing is creepy. And I bought it and I was like, oh, this thing looks a little funny. I put it under the Christmas tree for Christmas morning, and my son took one look at it, and he's 8, and he says, that is not sleeping in my room because these eyes are not good. I don't know. There is something creepy about this dog, so we didn't have a heart to get rid of him. But he's exiled. So anyway, so I made a waffle stitch. I don't know if you've seen. Oh yeah. Oh wait. Oh, that's backwards. I mean, both sides are nice, but the waffle stitch side is on this side. Oh, well, you can see it. So I did this in a worsted weight. I used Red Heart Super Saver worsted. I don't know what the color is actually, but it's it's a beautiful dark purple, which is my son's favorite color. And it's fairly long. I sized it to my husband with the standard hip to hip size, and it's nice and warm, and I don't know if he'll actually use it, but it's his favorite color and he will appreciate the thought. It'll keep him warm as it gets cool down there in Boise, so I'm going to send it to him soon with some things I know he'll look forward to, even if he kind of looks at the scarf and is like, why did my mom make that for me? So I made that, and this didn't hardly take any time at all. I practiced on some other yarn to learn the stitch, because since I knew I was going to give it to my son, I didn't want to be a situation like my blanket where like the first several inches are all crazy looking. And I will put a link down below, because I used a video tutorial for making this scarf, and it was really fun and pretty quick to stitch up. So then for my birthday I went shopping and I bought some real expensive yarn, and I'm not going to show you all the yarn I bought. I'm not going to get into the crochet haul stuff. But one of the things I bought a lot of cheap yarn too, but I did decide to go get some, more expensive yarn, some hand-dyed yarn. I bought some Blue Moon, this is attached. I bought 2 skeins, oh yeah, that one's attached, of Blue Moon Socks That Rock, lightweight. Oh, it's coming undone. In the color Seal Rock. It's funny because the colors on the skeins are very misleading. I mean, not to somebody probably who's more experienced than I am, but how this is presented, and I don't have it to show you, and I didn't take a picture before I rolled it up, because these fancy skeins, as expensive as they are, you have to roll them into a ball before using them. They're not like the cheap ones that like you can pull from the center and stuff like that. You have to cut them and laboriously roll them into a ball, so that you can use them without them getting tangled up. And this is called Seal Rock, and I'm not sure I would have bought it if it looked like this on the skein. On the skein, the presentation of the skein is a much more gradual seeming color change, and this color change is actually quite rapid once you're working with it. But I'm glad I have it though, because it's really beautiful. I'm very much enjoying it. I just didn't really see clearly what I was getting until I started using it. So this is a lightweight sock yarn. I'm not gonna plan to make socks anytime soon. Usually, most people don't seem to crochet socks. That seems to be more of a knitting thing than a crocheting thing. Although I have seen a few crocheted sock patterns. So this is the same exact pattern as I did with this, but with much smaller. And I have 2 of these, and they're pretty generous. I bought 2 skeins, and they're pretty generous balls, and I haven't used that much of them. So I do think I'm going to have enough to make a scarf out of them. So if I don't, that's okay. It'll be an expensive experiment, but it's quite beautiful. Not normally the kind of thing I would wear, but I can't think of anybody else to give this to. Not that I wouldn't wear a scarf, I would, but the colors as they're actually presented in real life on here are not really me. Like, the combination of them is a little bit loud. But you know what? If I actually manage to make a wearable scarf out of this, I will wear it, because I'm quite pleased with how it is turning out. And the variegation on this is just so enjoyable to work with. So here's the front, and the other side is this. And this is a surprisingly easy, I mean, I'm a total beginner, so this is a surprisingly easy stitch to work up, and it's so fun and satisfying. It's like springy and squishy and soft, and the texture is just so fun. So, and it is really, the variegation, the rapid change in color does really make it fun to sort of see it come together. It's just not normally the kind of thing that I would wear. It's a little loud for me, but I think I will wear it. So, I think I'll be brave and I will wear it, because I made it, and I'm making it, and I'm proud of it. So if I actually have enough to make a respectable scarf, then I will wear it. So, and so far it looks like I do. So that's why I bought two, because I wanted to hopefully be able to do something like that. So, okay. So that is it for the knitting. I've been doing a lot of like sample swaths and stuff on cheap yarn to like learn stitches, and I've got some good books from the library, and I've been watching videos, and I'm kind of getting into it. The knitting failed fast for me, but the crocheting is working much better for me. Oh, and I'm doing that in case anybody cares. So that's Blue Moon Socks That Rock yarn, and which I think I know you can find that online. And the color is Seal Rock, and the hook I'm using is 3.25 millimeter. One of the other things I did with my birthday money is I had a 40% off coupon for Joanne, and so I bought what was an $80 package of like 10 sizes of crochet hooks, so I would have a lot of options. And these are the nice ones. These are Clover brand. Individually they're about $10 a piece, so that was a good price, especially the 40% coupon. They're the ergonomic ones. I jumped right into the expensive crochet hooks even with my very first project because I have repetitive strain issues, and I wanted the more ergonomic grip ones. So I originally just bought one nice, comfortable one because I didn't want this to be like, I started off with real cheap yarn, but I didn't want this to be a failure because I didn't have, because I was hurting myself while crocheting. So, and they seem to work pretty well. I haven't been getting sore wrists or anything. So I think that's going well. So anyway, there we go. All right, so next, books. I've read 3 books this last few weeks, and the first one I read, I only have one to actually physically show you. The first one I read was called The Woman Who Smashed Codes, and I read it digitally, so I'll show you a picture of the cover. This was a really good book, nonfiction, but really read like a novel, it's about the woman and her husband, but it's told from, it focuses on the woman, Elizabeth Friedman, who in 1916, during World War I, she was a young woman. She was in her early 20s, and she was just like she'd done some teaching and stuff. She graduated college. She was looking for adventure. She was bored with life, and she sort of stumbled into this job with this eccentric, like tycoon type wealthy man who owned an estate. I think the estate was called Riverbank, something like that. And it was this estate with woods and kind of out in the middle of nowhere, kind of a compound, probably kind of a creepy place. You know, if it was today, we'd think this is like the home of a cult or something. Anyway, he ran this sort of science camp, and he didn't pay people very well, but he hired these like scientists and things like that to come, young, eager, educated people to come work for him on this like compound and do experiments, and there was some nefarious things going on, and anyway, but Elizabeth was sort of desperate for adventure, and so she took this job, and she pretty quickly realized that the work she was doing was pretty much worthless, that it was not scientifically based, that it was garbage, that it was junk. And but she stuck it out anyway, and she met her husband there, and they were kind of in agreement, but they felt a little bit stuck. They weren't making much money, and they had their living taken care of, and they felt a little bit stuck. and their jobs sort of gradually transformed into something more meaningful. Anyway, the gist of it being that these two, Elizabeth and her husband, are basically the founders. They're like solely responsible pretty much for like modern cryptography, like code breaking science. They started it and just formed it from the beginning, and not with any, at least in the case of Elizabeth, not with any real like background. I mean, there was no background you could have in it, other than just being a thoughtful person, somebody able to discern patterns, and there was no education that was necessarily appropriate to it at the time. But anyway, so this is the story of them from 1960 through the era of Prohibition and through World War II. And it was a fascinating story, and one of those things that reads like a novel, even though it's a true story. It was also a very good love story. I was very pleased that although her husband generally gets more credit, or has in the past anyway, gotten more credit for things than Elizabeth had, it wasn't because like he wasn't worthy and he took credit where stole from her or anything like that. He was very supportive of her. They were supportive of each other, but it was just the time. There wasn't really it was kind of like the path of least resistance, to get the work done, to get it published. It was just easier to not fight that battle, to do things under his name. But anyway, it's a good love story about the two of them, and she led an exciting life, and it was very interesting read, and not boring. Really, really fascinating, and not like hard to put down. Which is, a lot of times nonfiction gets a little dry and boring. They compared this book. I read comparisons of this book to two things. One to Hidden Figures, which makes sense, but the other comparison of the book is to In the Garden of Beasts by Larson, I think Eric Larson, who wrote Devil in the White City, and Thunderstruck, and several good books, but I don't really see that this book bears much resemblance to In the Garden of Beasts at all. So, but whatever. In the Garden of Beasts was a good book, but not anywhere near as good as this one. And that's a weird comparison to me. But anyway, nobody cares about that. Anyway, good book. I really very much enjoyed it. So, if you're looking for, the only thing I wish is that this book, the sort of groundbreaking in that it was written about this woman who has not been given her due. I kind of wish it was written by a woman. Why did a man write this book? I mean, I'm glad it's written regardless, but I kind of wish a woman had written the book. So, all right. The next book I read, my husband and I have been, over the last few years, been trying to do this sort of husband-wife book club where we read a book together. I read everything, just about, and he's pretty picky about what he reads, so usually I'm trying to like find something that we can read together that he will like. And so we read the first in the series of The Expanse, called Leviathan Wakes. And we both liked it. My husband does, I sort of, when I got this and took this home for him, I didn't tell him right away this was the start of a big series, because he's kind of against big series. He likes to read something that's self-contained. He doesn't like to get started, especially something big like this, to get started on something that, is then he's going to be stuck with, that's going to be a cliffhanger that he's going to be stuck, with indefinitely. And so I just kind of I'd heard really good things about it, and so I just kind of didn't really mention right away that it was part of part of a big series, even though this is one on the side of it. But this is really fun, and we could stop here. But I told him I'm going to read the second one. He reluctantly said that he might read the second one too. But you can just read it. There is a satisfying story contained here. It is a good start to a series. It's got a lot of narrator. I mean, there's a lot of points of view. There's a lot of characters. There's very soap opera-ish in some ways. It keeps you reading because it's very short segments, short chapters, very like punchy. You can read for 10 minutes and stop, get to a stopping point. It really keeps your attention because there's sort of a constantly shifting to different characters and different scenes, and there's a whole lot going on, lots of threads. And it was very good. I enjoyed it quite a lot. And I will definitely be picking up the second one. So if you want a big heavy duty science fiction series to start reading, you might try this one. This is number 1 in the Expanse series, Leviathan Wakes. So the last book I read, and I just finished it this morning, is Northanger Abbey. I don't know how you say it. Again, I read this digitally because it's in the public domain. So all of Jane Austen's books are in the public domain. So you can totally read this one for free off of Project Gutenberg. It's probably available in ebook form from your library. There's LibriVox has the audiobook, which is free to listen to. So there's all sorts of ways to listen to this free if you want to, or read it for free if you want to. Here's a picture of a cover of it. So Northanger Abbey is interesting. As I've said before, I'm not a huge Jane Austen fan, but I have been trying to go back and I haven't read her in many years, since I was high school, college aged. And so I've been trying to re-experience her and see what I think now. And I liked Northanger Abbey, I don't know. Somebody tell me. More than I expected to. It is, although it was one of her last published books, it was posthumously published after her death. It was published in 1818. It was the first novel she actually completed. I believe I read that it was completed in 1803. So as such, I had fairly low expectations because, a lot of times authors really haven't honed their craft and their first book isn't their best book, etc. So, but I actually enjoyed it. I am going to give this one 3 stars on Goodreads. There's problems with it. I mean, it's a romance between an 18-year-old, who's got a lot of growing up to do, and a much more mature 26-year-old man, and we're not supposed to be creeped out by this at all. That's a dating thing. It's a now thing. I would not be happy if my 18-year-old got together with a 26-year-old at this point. But he, in that time, it was, very much more acceptable, and it could have been worse. And, she definitely is a character. The character of Catherine Morland is definitely she's a very virtuous, good-hearted, intelligent young woman who is really just on the cusp of womanhood. And by the end of this book, she's married, and which I don't think is any kind of a real spoiler. So you pretty much know that's what's going to happen. But which by today's standards is not real great. And I kind of wish that they weren't, these were not the kinds of books that I know are still being assigned to teenage girls and boys to read in high school. But whatever. Otherwise, it was surprisingly good. There's a lot about friendship and basically peer pressure And there's a lot to be that a young person and even an older person like myself can relate to now about interacting with others and getting involved with liars and manipulators and people who want to use you for their own purpose and don't have your best interests at heart and that sort of thing. And there was a lot that I really enjoyed about the book, which surprised me. There were issues, as I mentioned earlier, but I enjoyed it surprisingly, and particularly for the fact that it was Jane Austen's first novel. I thought it was surprisingly well done. I'm a little bit, I don't know why they didn't want to publish it originally, but nevertheless it got published along with a couple of other things after her death. So anyway, I enjoyed that one, and I don't have anything else to say. This is not a terribly long video, but that's it for me for today. I don't think I told you what day it is. It is September 9th, 2019. And I will hope to see you again in a couple of weeks. And who knows what the lighting and setting will be next time we visit. We are very much, I'm letting my husband do whatever he wants to do within reason. So, and I think you are going to see him in a couple of minutes. So stick around for him. I think he's going to show you some of the highlights of his trip to Boise. So, all right, bye guys.
Here I am in Boise. I just checked into the hotel and I just drove over here, and it was a little stressful, but I made it, yay. Here's the room. I got a balcony. And look, there's Boise. Hello.
Hi, what's your rental car?
I'm getting video. We are in the building. This is Payette, which is where Max lives. And we're waiting for the elevator. Here we are.
Yeah, look at the couch. We got a couch and a chair.
This is in front of Max's dorm. And this building right here is Max's dorm building. Holy crap, listen to this bush. I'm gonna hike the Table Rock Trail in a second. It's like 86 degrees out. Check out my hat. So it's about 20 degrees warmer than I'm used to, and a couple of thousand feet. There's Boise. Additional elevation. But I feel pretty good at this point. It's not so bad. It's a nice breeze. Totally looking like a tourist, but whatever. Check out these flowers. Look at these things. They're pretty. They're all along the trail too. Not much else along the trail. If I had heat stroke, they'd be talking to me right now. Turn back. You're gonna die. No flower. I'm not turning back. This fence makes me think of making like a log bed frame. There's Boise. And I'm not dead from heat stroke yet. Onward and upward. So Max is all checked into the dorms, but he didn't want to come with me today because he's hopefully doing something fun. But he might just be playing computer games on his new TV. I don't know. Somebody was coming along the trail. I didn't want to look too much like a dorky tourist. Although, here, take a look. White socks and tennis shoes, pasty white legs, Costco t-shirt, and Bronco hat. Yes, it's kind of, and the over application of sunscreen and the extra large backpack. Yeah, I kind of look like a tourist. Whatever. This is actually a pretty easy trail. I'd be at the top right now if it wasn't for the heat. I'm trying to, not die. But here, take a look. I mean, it's very bikeable, and no roots or big rocks to climb over or anything. It's quite nice. Just ignore the heavy breathing. Ignore that. sure it's because of the heat. I'm not this bad out of shape. Of course, like I said, a few thousand feet more elevation than Juneau, so I'm not used to it. Going up the trail, up the trail, up the trail to the top. Look at this rock. Yeah. And there's flowers here too. Turn back, you're gonna die. Stop talking to me, flowers. I'm actually doing pretty good. I think I'm mostly there. Look, there's the radio towers. There's birds over on those rocks. There's a big cross at the top. The top of Table Rock was set aside from development to keep it in its natural state so hikers could, what is this? Telephone pole. So hikers could enjoy it, except for the, oh man, look at all this. Ah, look. Oh, at least the graffiti's nice. That one's my favorite. Yeah, this one's neat. This one's pretty cool. How did they do that? Yeah, I almost missed this one. Look at this one. This is neat. Going down the trail now. No problem with heat at all. No. No. Not at all. At all. I'm in wonderful shape. Wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful shape. Oh, I don't know what happened. I must have fainted or rested. Yes, that's it. It's not the heat. You're gonna die. No, I'm not, Flower. Shut up. Shut up, Flower. Yes, you're gonna die. No, look, I'm getting up. I'm fine. Everything's fine. There's a wind blowing. All right, maybe I'm getting a little too silly. The flowers aren't really talking to me. Oh. The only wildlife I've seen since I've been to Boise are a couple of smashed furry things on the road and a bunch of insects and of course a whole bunch of crickets in a bush. Anyway, it's nice country though. I'm liking it. It's bushes. Yeah, it's not completely dry here in Boise. The river, I think, helps. And oh, look, it's a bench under a tree. Ooh, nice. Let's go sit on the bench. The old Penn Trail was shorter than the way I took up the mountain, and it's a different way back to the car, and I like to do different hikes if I can. It's no fun hiking back the same trail. Sometimes it's okay on a mountain because, you know, you're looking up when you're hiking up and then looking down when you're looking down. Look, it's the Capitol. So this is the bike path in the Greenbelt. And it runs along the river, and people are renting inner tubes and rafts and stuff and going down the river, which is pretty cool. But I didn't know about it until now. And I didn't bring my swimsuit. It's really pretty and not very warm, which is really nice because my car said it was like 92 out right now, so. To connect the parks, there's like a thing that runs under the bridge. So here, check it out. And those are the electric scooters.